Once upon a time, long, long ago in, hell, well, you know the rest, the absolute evil had, in the fabulous predecessor to this game, taken over the entire overworld with its creatures. Now it spent its time on debauched parties and... Wait a minute. The entire overworld? No! One small village of indomitable heroes still held out against the invaders. The unamused evil was beside itself with rage. But all this was about to change once and for all, because the remote controlling evil sent its most vicious general into the field, the dark elf Talia. Talia, also known from the fabulous predecessor, came back from her vacation in a thoroughly good mood. Before that, she had defeated her foster father, the paladin Thanos. This fact is important to note. For this last remaining village of heroes was protected by none other than Tristan, foster son of Thanos and Talia's stepbrother. This proud warrior in shining, his handsome heroic chest accentuating armor, was the last glimmer of hope for the forces of good. Talia, who had fully embraced the dark side, couldn't wait to really kick her stepbrother's ass. And so our story begins. Tristan had managed to give Talia the slip, but she had been able to capture his magic glove. The gauntlet of finitude, a fabled artifact. Unfortunately, UI overlays don't work in cutscenes, so Talia couldn't read just exactly what the glove did. Nevertheless, she proudly presented it to the absolute evil in its form as the Dungeon Lord. And so misfortune took its course, because at the same time, Talia wanted to demonstrate how loudly she could snap her fingers. But this snap, which would go down in the history books as the Dungeon Lord snap, unleashed horrific forces that were discharged into the Dungeon Lord himself. As Talia rose to her feet, the gauntlet had disappeared, and the Dungeon Lord lay dying. Viewers often began to cry at this point, because it made them think back to the last really good superhero movie. Talia mourned for about 5 seconds. Talia had shattered the realms of good and served them onto the absolute evil on a silver platter, while it had actually done nothing at all. So Talia now became the absolute ruler. She had no clue about how to rule, but more than made up for it with hubris and consistently ignoring glaring problems. In addition, she surrounded herself with a staff of incompetent advisors. What could possibly go wrong? 10 minutes later, Tristan had captured Talia, locked her in a cage, and put the armies of absolute evil to flight. And so the story ends. We'll tell you how the story continues in overpriced microtransaction bites. Oh, wait, wrong script. That's a different developer. Hang in there, I've almost got it. While Talia was ignominiously taken away, the unused essence of absolute evil continued to float through the ether. It wasn't about to admit defeat that easily, but for evil to triumph once again, it needed Talia back, for better or for worse. And so the swirling essence of absolute evil set about commanding the perplexed-looking chaotic hordes and freeing Talia. Talia had been rescued from the clutches of her stepbrother Tristan by the absolute evil. This seemed a bit surprising as, after all, Talia had accidentally caused its demise only one cutscene earlier. But the disembodied essence of the irritated evil was restless due to its lack of physical form. It needed help finding a new body. In such cases, less competent personnel were also called upon. Talia was extremely grateful to have been freed from the cage after 3 long missions. Finding a new body for the absolute evil seemed a small price to pay. High up on the 4th highest peak in the world, Mount Snotmore, resided the venerable Council of Little Snots. These wise beings were the ones who would know what would constitute a new, adequate vessel for the absolute evil. All Talia had to do was reach the peak. A trifle, really, but unfortunately, her stupid stepbrother and his oversized army stood between her and her goal. Otherwise, however, it would have been so easy that even a group of gluttonous hobbits could have managed it. Talia had finally reached the venerable Council of Little Snots, high upon Mount Snotmore. These wisest of the wise gathered together, and Talia asked them the most pressing question weighing on her mind. Would she herself one day sit on a throne as a ruler? Would she hold the strings of power in a 5th installment of the Dungeons series? Would the overpaid narrator finally shut his mouth? Wait a minute! Talia's stupid questions simply bounced off the wise little snots. The most important question in the room, and for this story, was that of a new vessel for the absolute evil. The wise little snots deliberated. When they finally stepped in front of Talia again, who still hung on to her naive dreams, mumbling, and unlike me has only been with us for 2 installments, the leader of the little snots held a bundle in its hands. Inside this bundle was a cute, cuddly, never-before-seen baby little snot. It's crazy the ideas they keep coming up with. The little snot named Gorgu had to absorb the essence of absolute evil in order to serve as an adequate substitute. But apparently the little diaper butt was not yet strong enough to absorb all of the required essence. Talia would first have to train and strengthen Gorgu before he could fully absorb the power of the absolute evil. The battle between Tanos and Dungeon Lord Gorgu raged. Both opponents assumed their best anime fighting poses, sized up their opponent, and then exchanged blows, magic missiles, and/or telepathic insults. But even though the fight dragged on due to Gorgu's inexperience, the end was predestined. Tanos was forced further and further into the defensive. In his distress, Tanos saw himself with only one remaining option. He took the stones of finitude and stuffed them into his mouth. Tanos was bathed in an unnatural light, with flames rising from his eyes. He grew and grew as his muscles swelled and his body deformed. This discharge hurled the stones of finitude away yet again and scattered them in all directions. In his new form, Tanos was now significantly stronger than the inexperienced Gorgu, and with one mighty blow, the mutation hurled the Dungeon Lord in training to the side. Then the creature turned towards Talia. Its eyes began to flash. Destructive laser beams, yes, that's really what it says here, shot out of its eyes toward the dark elf to destroy her. But this was the moment for heroes, and so Tristan pushed his stepsister Talia aside, out of the line of fire. So now, instead of Talia, Tristan was scorched by Tanos's laser eyes. Talia had no time to check on her stepbrother, but fled as fast as she could. Natural forces, impossible to depict with our budget, wafted around. The air shimmered with energy and the smell of molten iron and burnt pizza. Wait, my pizza! I'll be right back. So sorry, I hope that didn't affect the finale in any way. Now, where were we? Wafting powers, shimmering air, disgusting taste. Oh, here. With their combined forces, Dungeon Lord Gorgon, Talia, and Tristan were able to push the mutated Tanos back. Onward, ever onward, in the direction of the rune sockets of finitude. The mutated Tanos fought for every inch of ground he lost. As he finally stood with his back to the rune sockets of finitude, he sputtered with the last of his strength.
Evil is going to triumph over gods again. This is madness.
This is
Dungeon!
Talia shouted at him and sent him into the void with a spectacular kick. When the magic fog cleared, Tanos was no more. On the one hand, Talia was saddened, having grown accustomed to putting enemies' heads on spears. But still, Talia's joy was so great that she even danced with a nasty little snot and twirled it around. Was this the end? Well, hardly, as there were still some loose ends. What became of Tristan, who seemed to disappear after Tanos' defeat? Would he raise another eye of good? What was Brynhild, the dwarf queen, planning? Had she created a doomsday machine? Or even found some rare nithril in the underground, capable of curing the elf's strange disease? Maybe that was something she should discuss with her good friend, Hellburnt. And was the Council of Little Snots really just a cheap reference to a council of lightsaber wielders? Or was there more to those deceptive fellows? Had they helped the absolute evil out of loyalty or the goodness of their hearts? But all these questions were for another day or installment of the series. Now, it was time to celebrate.